Now, before we actually start doing the publication, there's another thing we have to do is that set the distributor for each particular server. So go to your replication folder, right click and go configure distribution. Go next, 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 and go finish. So now this is going to be a distributor. Remember we said these are self-contained servers that have both the publisher and the subscriber and obviously its own distributor. So you need this. So that's successful there. And again, we're going to do the same process. Going to go replication, configure distribution, and just go yes to all of them. And let's just finish. And while that's occurring, I'm going to go to 3 and do the same thing there. And then once we've set up the distribution, or distributor I should say, then we're ready to, and that's done. And let's just check on 3, and that should take a few seconds. And that's just, and let's just validate now that we have. So if you right click, you can see the, if you can see the publication properties and distributed properties. So that's good. Let's just confirm it on 2. That's good. And let's confirm it on 3. And that's fine. So now we go to this master server, which is the original source of the data where we're going to replicate the data. So in this particular case, we're going to be doing a peer-to-peer replication from this. So we need to create a publication. So right click, new publication. And again, this is the reason why I don't want to go over snapshot replication, because it's fundamentally the same. So by the time you've learned this little more complex area, you'll certainly understand how to do merge and how to do snapshot replication. It's really not that dissimilar from this. So go to next. And obviously we want to select the database that we want to publish. So is PTP, next. Now obviously here we want to select peer-to-peer, go next. And obviously we're going to select all the tables, in our case, computers, go next. Again, SQL. So I'm just going to go and use the domain user, and you can use the wrap if you wish. And go OK. And next, next. Let's just call this computers. And go finish. And now obviously it's going to create the publication. And then what we're going to do after this, as soon as it finishes this one article of computers, is we're going to actually now send it to the other 2 servers. So if I expand this here, you'll see that I have a publication called computers. Now the other thing is, if I right click here, you'll notice that suddenly configure peer-to-peer topology option has given up. That was not there previously prior to just setting it up peer-to-peer. So that's important to know. So we're going to set it up this way. So remember, server 1 is the master server. We're going to set configure peer-to-peer so that all our servers will have the exact data and it'll be synced. So click on peer and go next. And obviously it's going to select the publication, and we want the master server to be SQL Server 1. It's highlighted the publication server. Go next. Now this is what you will see. The green little arrow here, or green little icon, indicates that it's the master server. So as I hover over it, obviously it'll give you relevant information, such as the publisher, publishing database, the distributor, distributor name, and number of peers. Obviously at this point it has 0. Conflict detection enabled. And then look at the ID. This is important because right now the peer originator ID is 100. And so what we're going to do now is add peers to this. And the way you do that is right click, add new peer node. Remember, now they're referred to as nodes. So we've already got server 1 or node 1. We want node 2. So connect. Here we select the appropriate databases, and that's why it's critical, obviously, to have a backup and restore. Otherwise, you won't see that database. And go connect all displayed nodes. And remember, the peer originator was 100. This is going to be the next one in increments. So we're going to say 101. As soon as I do that, you'll see the arrow. And if I hover over that, you'll see A, there's no green sign because this is not the master. And then it says original ID 101. So we can leave it here, or we want to add another one. So we can add another peer. And this one, we're going to use 3, node 3, connect. And again, we do the same thing. Select the appropriate database, connect, and make this 102. Oops. 102. And go OK. And now you can see, if I hover over it, and you can see now they're all synchronized, or will be synchronized with each other, but this is the source. So go next. And now obviously we have to do the log reader security again. So we've gone through this process again. So let's look at that. Use the SQL domain account. And let's continue. And obviously, if we had a lot of nodes here, then we'd have to do the security for each one. But this is a great feature. Use the first peer security for all the peers. So we'll just click on this and go next. Same thing here now for the other distribution agent security. We'll go 1, and again, let's do the login. And go next. And again, impersonate. And go next. And now obviously here you can see, excuse me, here you can see that had I not copied, backed up, and restored, excuse me, the database, then I would have had this option to choose and select the database. Since I already did it manually, I'm going to go next. And that's it. This gives you a summary of what's going on. And we can go scroll through it and go finish. And this will just take a few minutes. Excuse me. So as you can see now, we're building the peer-to-peer topology, which is the architecture, if you will. And you can see that they're creating publications on server 2, server 3. Then it's creating a publication or a subscription on 2 and 1, then 3 and 1, then 1 and 2, then 3 and 2, and so on. So that each server has its own subscription, each server is its own publisher and a distributor. And if one node goes down, the other node will can pick up. So you will always have synchronized data. And we're going to be seeing that in a second once this completes, how we'll insert one node to see if it propagates to the other 2 nodes and so on. So there we go, all are successful, 8 out of 8, and let's close it. And now you can see that in this particular publication, you've got server 2 and server 3. If I go to server 2, and I expand it, and expand that, you'll see there, server 1 and 3, and do the same thing here. So now we can start verifying all the data. So let's go to server 1, our master database, and I'll look at the select statement. So at this point, we just have 4 records. What I'm going to do now is on master server 1, I'm going to just insert a record in computers called Lenovo. So I'm going to do that. And now we have 5 records. This one has just been added. So let's see if it propagated to server 2. So let's go to server 2, do a select statement there. And you can see it's propagated there. And what about 3? And let's do a select statement there. And it's propagated there. What about now if I update or insert a statement from server 3? Will it propagate on server 2 and 1? Well, let's check. Well, I'm going to do, I'll just call it Intel. Can't think of other computers right now. So now I'm on server 3. I'm doing an insert. And I'm looking at the computers, and there we go. So did it immediately propagate in the other 2? So go back to server 2. And you can see there's 5 records here. Now there's 6. and 1 and 6. What about 2, our last verification? So let's go to 7, and I don't know, Bob, that's fine. So let's see if that updates. If I insert here, execute this, and I get Bob. That's a good company. And now obviously we should have Bob also. So that's great. So now you have set up peer-to-peer replication, and obviously the reason you would select is if HA solution is an important solution to have, and obviously the great thing is you can do writing against this because it is read only, or you can actually do it's not read only. Actually, you can do inserts, updates, and deletes on either one, and so you can use it for offloading workload if one database or one server particularly is using a little more resources. So this is a great benefit of peer-to-peer replication, and this is how you set it up. Now obviously, I always stress that when we look at backup and restores, it happens relatively instantaneously, and that's because there's no data here. But remember, in a production environment, you must take into consideration how long it takes to back up a database and how long it takes to restore a database. So in all of our courses and all of our videos, we've been doing things virtually instantaneous or within a few seconds or a couple of minutes. But in a production environment, take into consideration that this does not take that quickly. But the important thing is the principle is exactly the same. Nothing will change. When you sit in front of a computer and you're managing your SQL servers, this is what you're doing. You're not doing anything dissimilar from this. And I'm going to be having actually an entire course built on how to become a production SQL and what are the requisites. And that'll give you an idea of what roles and responsibilities you will be doing. So I think I'm going to leave it here because we've all talked about what replication is. I'm excited now to talk about always on availability groups, which is the next HA solution. And you'll realize that once you use that, most likely you won't use database mirroring or log shipping, because that's a great feature and encompasses all the technologies that we've discussed. But this is a great way of doing HA solutions if your company needs several dedicated environments for replication. So I'm going to leave it there, and we'll continue with the next videos. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.